All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So let me get to the right document here. I decided I'd make one more video just about conclusions because it didn't really feel to me like they would be a complete series without that. Now, I'm not going to do the other body paragraphs, but I am going to go ahead and work on a conclusion here. So the way that I would do a conclusion or start my conclusion is the first thing I would do is take my thesis and I'm going to copy and paste it here. Not because I'm going to use it word for word, but because I want that reminder of what my thesis is. And a good way to think of a conclusion is like a broadening out. So like kind of if we think of a triangle, we think of really close to the story at the beginning and then broadening out. So maybe what I'll do is just brainstorm through this. I'm just going to sketch things out. So the points that I want to be in my conclusion. So I'm going to even ask myself, what do I want my reader to know at the end of my essay? So I want them to know, number one, that Dr. Seuss has shown that bias and prejudice are bad. I also want them to know that the Sneetches, although a kid's story, is a story that has an important moral. I could ask myself too, right? Why is that moral important? Well, I could say in our modern world, people often stereotype or I'm just going to leave it at that for now. Stereotype others based on what they look like rather than taking the time to find out who someone really is. And maybe just the broadest part out is if, like the Sneetches at the end of the story, we are to overlook outside differences, we can have a happier and more productive society. Okay, not bad, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to summarize my findings. And again, it's just like a court case. A lawyer isn't going to end a court case by saying, I gave you evidence A, B, and C, therefore the defendant is guilty. They're going to remind us of what the importance is. So maybe I'll just kind of, since I have time, sketch out what a conclusion might look like here. And I'm going to start by reminding my reader of the thesis, which my thesis is here for me. And the first thing I'm going to do is talk about prejudice. So I could say, overall, I've got a transition word there. The Sneetches, although it was written, what would that be? Almost 75 years ago, 50 plus 25, years ago, still has an important moral for parents and children in today's modern world. Through the story, we are reminded that basing our opinion of someone on outside influence or outside appearances is bad because we do not get to know who someone really is. Now I'm going to go kind of back through the essay, and I would summarize my findings. So I would say Seuss shows us that at the beginning of the story, the Starbelly Sneetches will not associate with the Plain Bellies because of prejudice based on appearance. And since I didn't write the other body paragraphs, I'm going to kind of wing it here a little bit more. Through the rest of the story, we learn Are we witness the ways in which Make Monkey, Make Bean takes advantage of the Sneetches by using their prejudice against them. However, by the end, the Sneetches have realized that it's not what is on the outside that counts, but what is on the inside. Now I'm kind of thinking about these other 2 points here. So in our modern world, social media and other, let's just stick with social media, still reflects a society which often becomes obsessed or fixated on outside appearance. If, like the Sneetches, we could all realize that it's not what is on the outside that counts, we could have a happier and more productive society. Okay. And you can see, like, this is, again, maybe half a page. Is it perfect? No, but it's pretty good. And even just for the sake of argument, if I delete this, kind of my scaffolding here, or scratch work, whatever, however you want to think of it, and I do a couple things. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you by making sure that everything, so I'm double spaced, I'm in 12-point font now, and I am at 2 pages. So I know sometimes students will say, I couldn't write enough about the story because the story wasn't long enough. There are a couple things to bear in mind. One is, if I had 5 paragraphs, I could easily hit 3 pages, if not maybe 4 pages, even 5 pages. The other thing is, and maybe you notice this in the videos, there are times in which it feels like we're being repetitive. That's by design. I always try and think of it in terms of, if something can be misunderstood, it probably will be misunderstood. So I want to make sure that I'm explaining things as clearly as possible. Now, in the longer term, for whatever career or academic trajectory you're on, it'll be helpful to make sure that you can make these things clear. You think of something like an email or a progress report or a proposal for a job or something like that, where we want to make sure that we're clear, because if we're not clear, it's possible that our reader won't fully understand what we're trying to say. And if they don't fully understand it, that's where confusion happens. And when confusion happens, we can't succeed in our goal, which is to convince an audience of something, right? In this case, my whole goal is just to convince an audience of what the moral of this particular story is. And again, I will reiterate the fact that I choose kids' stories as source texts for the beginning of this class because they're easier to wrap our heads around. Now, the literary short stories that you'll have a chance to choose from are much more complicated, but the process is the same. And it's not to insult your intelligence, but it is to see how these things work at a sort of simple level, kind of with training wheels on, if you will. And then we can kind of work up to something that is more complex. All right. So there you go. If you have questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all later.